Hello and welcome back to Fishwick Associates, our weekly webisode, and welcome everybody again to the year 2021. This is gonna, as Daniel says, season two. I think our boss and owner, as always, John Fishwick, is going to discuss cold cases today. Isn't that right, John?
That's right. It's good to see you, Zach, our host with the most. And I see Daniel, Judge Daniel's back in the house. We haven't seen him since his great trip that he went on. So welcome back, Daniel.
Been a whole year.
Yeah, you got a lot going on in the office, and we appreciate you being back here. We've got a number of jury trials set this year. I think the last time I looked at the wall calendar, it was up to 18. So we've got a brisk 2021 headed up for us. So we're glad to have you back, Daniel.
We're catching up.
So I thought we'd talk a little bit today about cold cases. Cold cases are, every now and then a family will reach out to us. A very tragic thing has happened in their family's lives. Somebody has been, murdered, most likely, and that's what a cold case usually is. Cold cases can be any kind of criminal case where the trail has gone dry and they really can't find much about who committed the heinous act. And obviously when somebody's killed, that's a horrible, horrible thing, and it's really horrible for a family who they don't have answers. What did happen? And so these are unique cases. It's rare for us to get involved in those, but occasionally we will. Where a family will reach out to us and say, look, law enforcement's kind of reached the end. It's been a while. Would you be willing to take a look at it? And we look at it. The investigation is to try to find out what happened. Ultimately, it could be a civil case if we can figure out what happened within time. Basically, it's got to be figured out within 2 years of when the death was, to be not barred by the statute of limitations. Daniel, I'll get you to talk about that in a little bit. But Zach, when we get into a cold case, you've got an incredible law enforcement background. What are some of the things that we would look to try to, figure out what happened and to see if we can bring justice for a family?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, like you said, a cold case by nature is when a probative investigation has exhausted all its leads. And usually, specifically with cold cases, they have a violent crime in nature. Not all, but the majority of them, be it, homicide, unattended death under mysterious circumstances, or some kind of like violent sexual act like a rape. With that being said, the first and foremost, as a private agency, we work hand in hand. We would work hand in hand with law enforcement, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, obviously. But more so than them is actually like you said, the victims of the family. So we would talk with them. We would get their side of the story, what had happened, and then through the victim, we would reach out to like law enforcement, and then move on from there, obviously with Commonwealth attorneys and things like that. But it's literally, we're running a parallel investigation that the law enforcement agency did. But the reason cold cases now become so popular is because technology has come a long way. And specifically, we're talking about DNA technology. And now for the DNA coding and screening that they do for the various types of cases, we have a much better catalog now than we ever did before. So we're able to go back and look at some of these cases.
And so, Daniel, in a criminal case, years and years later, they can prosecute somebody for heinous crimes. Often there is no statute of limitations, meaning the time in which the state can prosecute somebody for a horrible crime, a murder or rape. But in a civil case, there are more strict time limits. And so that makes it even more challenging in these cases. Not only are we getting into a case that presumably a number of very capable and qualified folks have looked at and not been able to find answers. So they're turning to us to find answers, but often the clock is ticking if there is to be a civil case.
Yeah, that's right. So in the case of a wrongful death or a serious injury, the statute of limitations is 2 years from the date of that injury or death. And there's really no exception to that, even if you don't discover that the injury or death occurred until months and months later. That clock starts ticking the moment that injury or death occurs. So that's why it's very important that if you do have a cold case that you want someone like us to take a look at, the earlier the better.
Yeah. So these are very, troubling cases. I think we all have tremendous sympathy for families who've gone through this. And the worst thing in the world is this tragedy strikes their family and there aren't answers. It's unique for us to get into these cases because these are basically the domain of law enforcement. Every now and then folks will reach out to us. And if it's the case we're only going to help folks who we think we can really help. But if it's a case where we think we're going to help, then absolutely we'll look for ways to do it. It's a lot of investigation work. It's a lot of hitting the pavement and kind of re-looking at things to see if we can uncover something, interviewing witnesses, if we can get some answers for a family to provide closure. So this is a kind of a unique piece of our practice. We're always looking to help people. So if people have that situation and they've kind of reached some dead ends and they think that they want to get somebody else to take a look at it, we're happy to do that under the right circumstances. So Zach, if you could sign us off this week, it's good to see our host with the most. It's good to see Daniel back in the office, not virtual. I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, again, we thank you all. We hope all of you are doing well, and we look forward to a whole new year in 21, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.